In today's video, we'll take a closer look at how the Amish preserve fresh eggs for up to 12 months using only lime water. It's a simple but effective method that doesn't require electricity, refrigeration, or any special equipment. We'll go step by step through how the solution is prepared, how the eggs are stored, and why this old method still works just as well today. If you're raising chickens or looking for reliable ways to store food without modern appliances, this traditional approach might be exactly what you need. Number 1. Why the Amish don't use refrigerators. For the Amish, choosing not to use refrigerators isn't about rejecting comfort. It's part of a much larger way of life that centers around self-reliance, simplicity, and a deep respect for tradition. This decision isn't made lightly. It's not a matter of being outdated or behind the times. The truth is, the Amish community has developed a lifestyle where the absence of modern conveniences like refrigeration is more of an advantage than a limitation. Instead of depending on electrical appliances, they've created effective, time-tested systems that allow them to live independently of the grid. And preserving eggs without a refrigerator is one of the clearest examples of this in action. Everyday life in Amish households is structured around seasonal rhythms. They know that in spring and summer, their hens will lay more eggs than the family can possibly consume in a day or even a week. But come winter, when laying slows down drastically or stops altogether, those same eggs become a precious commodity. So the challenge becomes, how do you keep spring's abundance available in the cold months ahead, without access to electricity, and without compromising the quality or safety of the eggs? That's where the method of lime water preservation comes into play. It's not a gimmick. It's not done because it looks traditional. It's done because it's been proven over generations to work quietly and reliably. The key point here is that refrigeration is not necessary if you understand how to preserve food properly. Instead of plugging in a fridge, the Amish rely on knowledge passed down through lived experience, methods that don't require constant energy input or maintenance. Lime water preservation, in particular, allows eggs to be stored at room temperature or in a cool cellar for up to a full year. The process itself is incredibly simple. Unwashed, fresh eggs are submerged in a solution of clean water and pickling lime, which creates an environment that protects the eggs from spoilage. The eggs stay raw, uncooked, and usable in every way, from baking to frying. This method reflects how the Amish approach life. Plan ahead, use what's available, waste nothing, and don't rely on outside systems when you can do it yourself. Preserving eggs in lime water is a quiet example of this philosophy. It's not flashy, but it's incredibly effective. Instead of chasing convenience, they choose consistency. And in doing so, they've kept a food preservation method alive that many people today are just starting to rediscover. Number 2. What makes lime water work? At the heart of the Amish method for preserving eggs lies a fascinating yet straightforward chemical process, one that doesn't rely on artificial additives, refrigeration, or preservatives from a lab. It all begins with a natural mineral compound known as pickling lime, or calcium hydroxide. When this powdery substance is dissolved into clean water, it creates what's known as lime water, a strongly alkaline solution. The high pH level of this liquid is the key to its preserving power. In an environment where spoilage bacteria would normally multiply and break down food, the extreme alkalinity of lime water acts like a natural barrier. Most microorganisms simply can't survive in such conditions, and that's exactly what makes the solution effective for long-term egg storage. But the lime water isn't doing all the work on its own. Nature has already given the egg its first line of defense. When a hen lays an egg, she coats it with a nearly invisible film known as the bloom, or cuticle. This waxy layer is incredibly important. It seals the pores of the eggshell and prevents outside contaminants like bacteria or mold from entering. It also helps regulate moisture, which is vital in maintaining the egg's internal balance. The moment that coating is washed away, the egg becomes far more vulnerable to spoilage. That's why, for lime water preservation to work properly, the eggs must be completely unwashed. Any cleaning, scrubbing, or rinsing can ruin the natural seal, making even the best lime solution far less effective. The preparation of lime water is uncomplicated, but it must be done with care. A typical ratio used by the Amish and others who follow this method is about 1 ounce, or 2 level tablespoons, of pickling lime per quart of water. The water needs to be clean and free from chlorine or other chemicals, often well water or filtered rainwater. Once mixed, the solution becomes cloudy and milky white. That's a good sign. It means the lime has reacted with the water properly. There's no need to dissolve it completely. In fact, some sediment at the bottom is expected and harmless. The Amish usually prepare their lime water in large food-safe containers, often 5-gallon buckets, capable of holding dozens of eggs. The eggs are then gently placed into the solution, where they stay fully submerged for months, untouched and protected by both chemistry and nature. Number 3, how the eggs are prepared and stored. Once the lime water solution is properly mixed and ready, the process of storing eggs begins. But it's far from a careless routine. The way the Amish prepare and place each egg is done with precision, care, and a deep understanding of what's required for successful long-term preservation. They don't rush this part. In fact, it's one of the most important stages because every egg that enters the solution must be flawless. There's no washing, no scrubbing, and absolutely no handling with wet hands or dirty cloths. The eggs are inspected one by one, usually collected fresh from the coop the same day or the day before. The priority here is condition, not appearance. An egg that looks slightly dusty but is structurally sound is far more valuable than a visually perfect egg that has a hairline crack or a missing bloom. Visual inspection is key. Each egg is held up to natural light to spot any hairline cracks or imperfections in the shell. Any egg that shows signs of damage, uneven color, or weakness is immediately set aside. These aren't wasted. Many are fed to animals or used quickly in cooking, but they're never put into the preservation bucket. Why? Because even one compromised egg can ruin the entire batch by introducing bacteria into the solution. Only intact, unwashed, clean-looking eggs go into the lime water. Placement into the container is done gently, usually by hand. The Amish commonly place the eggs with the pointed end facing downward. This orientation isn't random. It helps maintain the position of the yolk and minimizes internal air pressure against the shell, which can otherwise speed up deterioration. As the eggs are lowered into the cloudy lime water, they immediately begin to absorb some of the alkaline solution through their porous shells. This process helps further seal the shell and stabilize the interior. The container itself is another important factor. Most Amish families use large food-safe buckets, ceramic crocks, or even glass jars. Anything that's non-reactive and won't leach chemicals into the solution. The lid isn't meant to seal the container airtight, but it must be good enough to keep insects, rodents, and debris out. Some use cloth or wooden covers, while others rely on plastic snap-on lids that rest loosely on top. What matters most is that the contents stay clean, undisturbed, and shaded. Once filled, the container is placed in a location where temperature and lighting remain stable. A root cellar is ideal. It's cool, dark, and stays relatively unchanged throughout the year. Basements and pantries also work, as long as they're free from large fluctuations in heat and sunlight. This isn't about refrigeration, it's about minimizing stress on the eggs. Heat can accelerate chemical changes, and light can degrade the quality of the egg over time, even through the shell. The eggs must remain fully submerged the entire time they're in storage. If the lime water level drops due to evaporation or accidental spillage, the eggs on top may dry out, spoil, or develop mold. To prevent this, the Amish check on their containers occasionally, not every day, but just enough to make sure everything is still in place and undisturbed. A clean bucket with the right solution and a stable environment can preserve eggs for up to 12 months without issue. A single 5-gallon bucket can hold somewhere between 50 to 100 eggs depending on the size of the eggs and the shape of the container. That's a significant amount of stored protein, enough to supply a household with eggs for weeks or even months when hens stop laying in winter. The efficiency of this method lies not just in the chemistry, but in the discipline of careful handling, thoughtful storage, and long-term thinking that defines the Amish way of life. Number 4. The science behind the preservation. What happens inside an egg preserved in lime water is far more fascinating than it appears from the outside. To the naked eye, the egg might look unchanged, simply sitting in its pale, cloudy solution month after month. But on a chemical level, the lime water is creating conditions that are actively working to protect and stabilize the egg. Understanding this process begins with the nature of lime water itself. When calcium hydroxide is dissolved into clean water, it produces an environment that is highly alkaline, with a pH level significantly above neutral. This high alkalinity is precisely what prevents the vast majority of bacteria and fungi from taking hold inside or around the egg. It's not that the lime water kills everything, it's that it creates an atmosphere where spoilage organisms simply can't function properly. Now, it's important to remember that an eggshell is not solid. It's covered in thousands of microscopic pores that allow air and moisture to pass in and out over time. Under normal conditions, this process is what causes eggs to age, dry out, and eventually spoil. However, when submerged in lime water, something remarkable happens. The alkaline solution seeps into these tiny pores and reacts subtly with the surface of the shell. This reaction forms a light, natural seal that significantly reduces the shell's permeability. As a result, the normal rate of dehydration slows to a crawl, and oxygen exchange is nearly stopped. This dramatically lowers the risk of internal bacterial growth. Another key element of the science is the air cell inside the egg. Every egg contains a small pocket of air, usually at the wider end. As an egg ages naturally, that air pocket expands due to moisture loss and internal chemical breakdown. In a lime water environment, this process is slowed so much that eggs preserved for 8 months or longer can still pass what's known as the float test. That test involves placing an egg in water. If it sinks and lays flat, it's fresh. If it floats, it's old and potentially unsafe. Eggs kept in lime water tend to remain dense and stable, sinking easily and retaining their internal structure for much longer than untreated eggs. What truly surprises people who try a lime-preserved egg for the first time is how little it differs from a freshly laid one. The yolk remains firm and centered. The egg white doesn't turn cloudy or runny. There's usually no unpleasant odor or taste, and the overall texture holds up incredibly well. While some people report a slight thickening of the white or a firmer yolk in older preserved eggs, these changes are subtle and rarely affect cooking performance. Whether you're frying them in a skillet, boiling them for salads, or incorporating them into baked goods, lime water eggs behave just like fresh ones in most recipes. The preservation isn't about freezing the egg in time. It's about slowing down the natural breakdown processes so thoroughly that time becomes almost irrelevant. The science behind it is a quiet, chemical balance between shell, solution, and storage environment. It's a delicate but stable system, one that the Amish have relied on for generations, not because it sounds impressive, but because it works, consistently and predictably. Number 5, real-world lessons from the Amish. The way the Amish preserve eggs using lime water isn't just an old-fashioned curiosity, it's a clear demonstration of how traditional knowledge can remain completely relevant in today's modern world. While much of society depends heavily on fragile systems like refrigeration, supply chains, and high-tech appliances to manage even the simplest aspects of food storage, the Amish quietly continue with methods that require none of it. Their egg preservation technique stands as a direct reminder that reliability doesn't always come from something new. Sometimes it comes from something deeply understood, consistently practiced, and passed down through real, lived experience. One of the strongest lessons this method offers is that true self-sufficiency doesn't need to be complex or expensive. Anyone with access to unwashed, fresh eggs, especially those who raise backyard chickens, can apply this technique in their own home without any special skills. All it takes is pickling lime, clean water, a proper container, and a bit of patience. The lime itself is inexpensive. sold in small quantities that last a long time, and doesn't require refrigeration or shelf-stable packaging. A few tablespoons can preserve dozens of eggs, making the cost per egg almost negligible. There's no monthly bill to keep the process going, no spare parts, no noise, and no ongoing maintenance. The method is also scalable, which makes it practical for more than one kind of household. If someone has just a few hens in their backyard, a single mason jar can hold a dozen eggs preserved for the off-season. But for larger families or those who collect many eggs each week, food-grade buckets or ceramic crocks can store up to 100 eggs or more at once. Whether you're storing for a couple of weeks or preparing for an entire winter, the same method applies. There's no need to change anything except the size of the container and the space you dedicate to storing it. Perhaps what's most striking is how naturally this kind of knowledge fits into Amish family life. Unlike formal education or written instruction, this method is taught hands-on. Children grow up watching their parents mix lime, inspect eggs, and fill the containers. They learn through helping, observing, and repeating the steps season after season. There's no manual sitting on a shelf. There are no step-by-step YouTube videos being played in the kitchen. This is oral tradition, reinforced through consistent action, where doing something the right way becomes instinct rather than instruction. And the reason the method is still in use today is simple. It continues to meet the same basic need it always has. People need a dependable, safe way to store food. The Amish don't preserve eggs in lime water because it's nostalgic or trendy. They do it because it works every single time. It doesn't require faith in the electrical grid or grocery store shelves. It requires only trust in the process, confidence in the materials, and the discipline to carry it out carefully. That's a lesson worth noticing, especially in times when resilience and independence are more valuable than ever.